Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 on how to make a goblin bomb series. In the previous tutorial we went through the process of making the low poly model. In this lesson I'll go through unwrapping and texturing the model, so let's get to it. So following in a similar process we used to actually modelling the bomb, we'll do the same and just UV the individual pieces rather than the mesh as a whole to save time. Also, before we get to unwrapping, a good add-on for Blender that I frequently use is the Textile Density Toolkit. It's got a handy button that will apply a UV grid over the model, so when we start to unwrap, any problematic areas are easier to spot. It's a free download. I'll put the link in the description below. And once you've downloaded that, if you go up to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, you see a little install button there, and you'll be able to find it and make sure it's checked. So if you press N on the keyboard, brings up this plugin. So if you have to go into material view, select all that. So that's what we'll have. Select all three pieces and assign checker material. So now we can see if there's any stretching over parts of the models. So we'll remove that for now. And what we want to do is just split the model back up into its individual parts, so it's easier to unwrap. So I'll start with this. This middle sphere is basically just going to have an emissive material on there, so I'm not going to bother unwrapping that because there's no point, but I will rename it and we'll hide that for now. So that's one end. We'll take this to wireframe edit mode. We'll make sure we're in face selection, just roughly use Control and Plus. Oh. Delete them. There we go. We're just left with the two pieces that we need to unwrap. Matter of fact, we will separate these out as well and unwrap these separately. Just saves a bit of time. So select them, P, separate them out. Then wireframe, make sure we're in edit mode, face selection, delete them, delete them. Yeah, there we go. I'll remove the back of this face because it's not needed. Ideally, if I was making a high poly model, this would be cut into the model itself, but because we're going low poly, I won't bother doing that. So if you select up at the top and drag down, we'll make a new window and UV editor. You can also just click on UV editing up at the top and it'll get you to the same point. We will unwrap this bit first. So you want to select the model, edit mode, faces, there we go. Select them all, and then press U. And for this, yeah, we'll just unwrap. There we go. So let's see. If you want to see what piece you actually selected in the UV, if you click up this little button here, you can see on on the model where it is. So it's handy. There we go. If we apply the material checker, you see there's not any weird stretching or bits we need to worry about. Next, let's do this little bit. So edit mode for face. Again, don't necessarily need to unwrap this bit because it's just going to have an emissive material, but we'll just unwrap it and move it out of the way, so it's not going to be taking up any space on the UV texture map. Same can be said for this section actually, because that's also going to have an emissive material. So let's move that out of the way as well. So if we take all this model and just unwrap it, it's going to cause some, well, quite a lot of stretching. Let's put the checker material on. This is because we don't have any seams cut into it. So a seam is just a line of edges where the unwrapper knows that split it here. So ideally we want seams to be hidden away. So if we choose somewhere where you're less likely to see them, so here to there, you right click, mark seam. So now when we go back, select that model, unwrap. What have we still got the, okay, we've still got the central face. Let's move that, try again. Unwrap. There we go. We shouldn't have as much warping now. What we can do is to straighten this up. Go into edge selection, so the side, line on the X, line X. Saying that we don't want to do that at the edge, we'll do it here. We just want to make sure one of these lines are straight. We can select the face, press L, that will select the island, and right click and follow active quads. And what that will do is we'll take this edge and align all these edges on each. So let's go into the last bit. We won't worry about the size right now, we'll do that all at the end when it's all unwrapped. I think this section, we've already removed the face from the centre of there. So we take this, yeah, let's take that whole face, unwrap. We'll also add the material on there as well. I think we'll quickly clean these up as well. So if you select auto merge vertices and then vertex selection, just want to weld them into the middle. One could go there. We'll select that face and then dissolve. And we'll do the same with this one. There you go, it's a little bit cleaner. We'll do it with these top ones as well. Take that middle one. We can loop select them, X, dissolve. We'll also dissolve this edge as well. It's not needed right now. There we go. So now that that bit's cleaned up, what we really want to do here is start cutting seams of where we want to split up the mesh. So if we just select it all, L, then press U, unwrap. Yeah, there's a lot of overlapping UVs here, so we're going to have quite a few problems. So easiest thing to start doing is just let's split off this bottom section. So using Shift and Alt, I'm just selecting the line. There we go. Again, a bit easier to see. And then right click, mark a seam. I think what we'll also do is I'll quickly show you on this section. So if I select this island and unwrap, it's still a bit skewed. It's mainly because we need to cut, say that these are edges as well, just so it can lie flatter. You'll see what I mean. So mark seam, select that, unwrap. There we go. So now these are the seams that we cut. It just allows it to lie flatter. So what we'll do now is we'll do the same for this bit. So in edge selection, we'll just start marking some relief cuts where we will need them. So mainly concentrate these around the sharp edges. We'll cut more shortly. So mark seam. We'll look at this part in a minute. It's going to have to, I think this might have to be separated out completely. So select that, press U, unwrap. There we go. You select this island. That's the underside of the island. So we're not gonna bother looking too much into that because it's on the underside. No one's ever gonna see it. So there's not much to worry about with that. This doesn't look too bad anyway. So let's go back into my material view and have a look at the checker pattern. There's a little bit of wobbling here. Okay. I think what we'll do, because this section will eventually have a normal map applied to it to give it the textured look, we'll UV this separate and make it its own island, just so later on when we do apply that, we know it's gonna be nice and straight. Look at the top. So you've probably noticed that all the tiny little squares are different sizes. It's important that we make all these the same size so we can ensure that they're sharing the same amount of UV space. So what we can do, we can see UV mode. We do want to select everything. Apart from the green bits, we're not bothered about that. And that bit as well. So there we go. Let's select everything. Obviously I've not selected the sections that are going to have the emissive material on. You go into UV and average island scales. So click this and it should average out all the pieces. So all these squares should be roughly the same size now. That's what we're after. Select everything again into UV and then pack the islands. If we look closely, some bits are quite close to each other. We ideally don't want this because of texture bleeding. You don't want it to cross over onto another section, so we just select them all again. Pack islands, this little pop-up, we can make this slightly larger. There we go, just so you can see them a lot more now. Turn this material off. So there you go. All these parts are unwrapped now. So what we'll do now is we'll just start rebuilding the bomb back up. So same as we've done before. Let's do this quickly. Hmm. 22.5. There we go, we've got a rebuilt sphere. We'll just combine all this together. So we go into UV. It's all there. Sometimes if you want, so one issue that we might come across right now is if you want variation across each little section, you can't get that because they are overlapped. What we can do to fix that is, now this is done, is just back up to UV and pack the islands again. So this will separate out all your individual pieces. Depends how you want to do it. Let's make that slightly smaller. There we go. And that's it unwrapped. So what we want to do now is start setting up the shaders for the pumpkin bomb. Before we do that though, what we want to do is, because we are going to apply a normal map to these sections, we'll quickly add a new material now so we don't have to do it later. So in the UV window, just select these sections. They'll probably be somewhere else on yours, but you can find them by their shape, and then select these ones down here as well. So then we've got all these selected. We want to add a new material, a knurling. I think it's called knurling. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that, but that's the type of metal that we'll be applying to that soon. So there we go. Oh, if you hover over, press Ctrl C and Ctrl V over another colour, it will match that colour. So after we've done that, if you go up to the top into shader editor, so the first thing we want to do is make it metallic. We will also do it on that material. So it doesn't look very metal at the moment. So if we mess with the roughness, you can see there, so I get a lot more shiny. In the description down below, I've added two textures. One's the normal map for the knurling and one's a scratch map. So before we set up the scratch map, what we will need to do is just add a mix shader. There we go, mix shader. And then duplicate the principled BSDF. And then, plug that into the shader below. And what we want to do with the scratch map is bring that in, make sure it's set onto non-colour, and set that up into the FAC. So now when we start to adjust the roughness, it's just this roughness below is just affecting the scratches, so we can make them slightly darker. I want to turn this roughness down slightly as well. So if you select on the lower principal node and click Control T to bring up a mapping and texture coordinate node, if you don't have that, you can look in your preferences, just search for node and make sure that's turned on. Because the scratches are looking a little bit big at the moment, so if we can add more of them. I was in the wrong place. You want to do that onto the scratch map. So now, there we go. Add some more subtle scratches onto it. So for the knurling, what we want to do is drop in the normal map that's in the file with the scratch map. Press Control T to add the coordinate and mapping node. We want to bring out the colour slot into a normal map. There we go. And plug the colour into colour and the normal into the normal. So there we go. We'll just select that colour gold, put it back into knurling. There we go. So what we want to do now is bump up the scale there, something quite big. Maybe a little bit less, so 8. Yeah, that'll do. Obviously you can mess with the strength here, so yeah, that works good. So let's have a little mess around with the black. So we'll set the metallic to 0.7 and just turn the roughness down a little bit. Like, we don't want it a mirror finish, but we want to get some nice reflections on there. And now to the glowing section. So let's turn the emission up. So let's go to the emissive texture or shader. So what we want to do is bring this up slightly. Let's make it a green colour. Obviously that's far too much, so we'll turn the emission right down. Yeah, let's go for 2. So if you don't have a bloom, you just go to render settings at the top, or render properties, and activate bloom. You'll also activate ambient occlusion. And that's it, and that's how I set up the materials for the pumpkin bomb. So thanks for watching again. In the next lesson I'll go through the environment setup, making the road, setting up the backdrop, lights, camera, and we'll get a render done. So thanks again for watching. Bye.